Hello and welcome to today's webinar from O3 Solutions, over 7 years in AWP technology, where we've been and where we're going, presented by Josh Gervin, O3's CEO. Thank you for joining us today, and now let's take a quick look at the agenda. So first up, I'm going to cover a brief safety moment, and then I'll hit the speaker intro, and then Josh will give you a brief background of who O3 is before launching into the evolution of AWP tech landscape, the O3 product strategy, and where O3 is taking the industry next. After key takeaways and conclusion, we'll have time to answer any questions you've had throughout. As a reminder, please submit your questions throughout today's presentation via the GoToWebinar question panel. And now let's jump into a quick safety moment. So as the holidays approach and we begin hanging lights and things that need power, it's important to keep safety at top of mind. Here's some key things to look for circuit protection, including flickering, blinking, dimming lights, warm or discolored wall plates, any type of noise or odors, and of course, any shock from appliances. Some ways to prevent that are to plug the appliances directly to the outlet. Declutter the outlet, unplug when not in use, and check the wires before you plug them in for any damage. And a quick stat just to hit home the safety is that nearly 50,000 home fires in the US are caused by electrical malfunctions each year. And now for today's speaker. Josh Gervin is the CEO of O3 Solutions. He's on the CII AWP CBA as a member of the leadership team. He's the founding co-chair for Performance and Benchmarking, Scaffolding Working Group, and AWP for Engineering. He's also a member of the CII Technology Committee, a former SVP of Product and Market Strategy for Materials Management and RFID software. Josh holds 12 technology patents and received a BSc in Mechanical Engineering from Princeton. Thank you for joining us today, Josh. With that, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Tori. So just want to start out with a level set on who O3 is. O3 is the market leading AWP software provider. We provide a complete true work package management solution across the entire project lifecycle, and it's scalable from small cap projects up to the largest projects in the world. In terms of our experience, it's roughly 50-50 split between owners and EPCs with global rollouts across both of those. We have some of the world's largest projects, $70 billion TIC with thousands of users on the project, down to small cap brownfield projects managed as a portfolio on an operating asset for an owner. So whether it's a sub-$1 million project or a $70 billion project, O3 and AWP can scale to meet your needs. In terms of some additional experience, we're over 500 projects globally. O3 is deployed and has more users and more projects doing AWP than any other software provider, across multiple contractors, owners, and EPC firms, and over 20,000 users inside the tool. So an extremely battle-tested solution. If you look at the market, what we see from providers today really fall into three buckets. We have the legacy providers. These are the solutions that were created in the early 2000s. Most of these have been end of life now, and people realize that, and they've moved off of these solutions. But there are some kind of dinosaur legacy providers out there. Then there's another bucket, which is the everything to everyone bucket. Oh yeah, we slap an AWP sticker on our solution because AWP is hot and CII says that it's important. That's not who O3 is. O3 from the beginning recognized that AWP was the future of construction, and we developed a solution that was designed specifically to support across the entire project lifecycle and AWP across that entire project lifecycle from concept through commissioning. So beware of the folks who slap an AWP sticker on it, but truly don't solve AWP, aren't built to around AWP. And then lastly, there are a number of unproven startups on the market, some folks that are trying to jump into this space. And we think it's important that when selecting AWP technology, you go with somebody who has a modern solution like O3, but wasn't invented last year or started last year, somebody that has true battle tested and proven results in the space. And we think O3 is different. We don't have any legacy tech debt. We're not an older, thick client on-premise dinosaur type solution. We're a modern SaaS mobile solution with a modern user interface. And we are purpose-built around AWP and Agile. Out of the box, 10 different work package types supported across the entire life cycle of the project. And all of the industry best practices are incorporated into the solution, from data standards, from AWP best practices, all of those components that you come to love and expect from CII have now been built into the solution. And in fact, we're working within CI, and one of the joint working groups that I'm chairing now is around AWP for engineering. And our task there is actually to catch CI up to where the CII up to where the industry is. So our clients in the engineering space are ahead of where the CII documentation is, and that's why we started this joint working group to try to help bring CII documentation up to the cutting edge of where industry lives today. And then lastly, battle tested in the field. Over 20,000 users, hundreds of projects globally, rolled out as a mission critical solution, as a global enterprise solution for owners and contractors. It's just, when it comes to AWP, it's no longer, should we do it? This has been deployed. It's been done. This is the way that business is done today. From a strategy perspective, some of the things, or technical perspective, some of the things that set us apart, we are a single modern platform solution. So we're not a technology that was Frankenstein's monster that through acquisition, we bought a bunch of different solutions and then duct taped them together and said, hey, look, we have a platform. No, we had the advantage of understanding and being able to say, okay, let's look at the entire project lifecycle. Let's understand AWP as a process or methodology and how that goes across that entire project lifecycle, and then architect a single solution to support that. And so it is truly cloud-based solution. It is a modern solution, but it's one data layer, one business layer, one consistent modern user interface, not a bunch of tools that have been jammed together to try to provide a complete solution. From a work packaging perspective, a lot of things that make us different. We're not just a scoping tool. So you'll see a lot of solutions at market that, hey, look, I can click on a 3D model and I can grab some pipe and build a package. Well, that's scoping. That's one small piece of this. Where O3 really changed the industry first was through the introduction of actual constraint management and true work package management. So we were the pioneers in this space. We invented the true constraint management here. We still lead the space in that, but also in the management of packages themselves. So a package doesn't just need to be scoped. It's a true entity that has a configurable status workflow, and it has approvals and constraints and risks and actions and tasks and all these things that need to happen across that. And that's really one of the core components of O3 solution. It's a work package management tool. It's a workflow management tool. It's not just a package scoping component. And then from a scalability perspective, as I mentioned, we work on the world's smallest projects up to the world's largest projects. And we do that through robust roles and permissions, which you expect from any modern solution. But then also we support multiple projects. So you can have all of your enterprise projects, all of them inside of the solution. You can have a whole portfolio of projects. So if I'm a Shell as an owner, for example, I can log in and I can see globally all of my projects, and I can zoom in on a particular portfolio and understand the projects within that. But not only can I do that from a my project's perspective, but I also can open this up to all the project stakeholders, but control what information individual stakeholders can see based off of the contracting quilt. So we actually consume that contracting quilt, and then contractor A can't see contractor B's data, but both can be in there operating, and then the owner or the EPC above them can see all the data as necessary across those different contractors. And then lastly, what's core to us, and we're, and critical and in the fiber of who O3 is, we are an agile development shop ourselves. So we use the Scrum development methodology. We do 2-week sprints, and we do a production release of the software every 2 weeks. That's 26 production releases per year. Some of the people out there that claim to be modern solutions will do a release every 1 or 2 years, right? We do 26 production releases per year, and that's what allows us to quickly adapt to changes in the market, feedback from our end users, and constantly be continuously improving and iterating. And if your software solution provider doesn't take that methodology, strongly suggest that you look for somebody who understands modern software development. In terms of the evolution of AWP, those that have been in the industry for a while know that this started out early with COA. Workface planning was a big hit early on in the oil sands, and then COA, Construction Owners Association of Alberta, was the first to recognize AWP as a best practice back in 2005. Then there was a research team that was launched to understand how we could enhance. So this is enhanced work packaging concept. At that time, it wasn't called advanced. It was called enhanced work packaging, this concept of extending workface planning. Then in 2011, CII and COA did RT 272, which is one of the most famous works in the AWP space. And that's where we get into the advanced work packaging, or the AWP, with that AWP, the advanced part, meaning earlier in the process. And then there was an effort to extend that model, advanced work packaging, and consider other components and other challenges. And there was a lot of information and data collected through this process. And then ultimately that led to the CII certification of AWP as a best practice in 2015. And then shortly thereafter, in 2016, O3 was launched as the first software designed to support AWP across the project lifecycle. So at that point, there were legacy on-premise thick client solutions that were born in the early 2000s that were doing graphical workface planning, really just the scoping component of graphical scoping of workface planning. But there weren't any solutions that were designed for true advanced work packaging across the project lifecycle, and O3 was founded to address that market need. Where we started, however, wasn't we didn't just come out and say, hey, we've got the whole complete thing across everything. We recognized that there was a need to fill some gaps and build that over time. And so we took a journey that's very similar to what we recommend for a lot of clients. And where we started was constraint management. So we really pioneered the space in constraint management, and we're the first ones to say, hey, these constraints aren't just a checklist. Hey, is this here? Is this here? Is this here? This is a true entity that has to be assigned to people. It's got to be trackable and reportable, right? You have to have due dates. You have to have priorities. You have to treat this like a real action inside the system, not just some checklist that somebody checks off. And so we pioneered this in the space, and that's where we recommend where folks get started is constraint management. From there, we went to non-graphical work package creation or scoping and management. So first, we saw a market gap where, hey, the solutions at space or solutions at market really only offered this graphical workface planning or graphical work scoping. And we said, hey, what's needed is a non-graphical component of that and the ability to, once you scope that package, move that through a status workflow and manage that package. It shouldn't just be I scope a package, I print a piece of paper, I take that into the field, and then somebody checks off what's been done, and then I capture what's been done. There's a lot of stuff that happens in between there, like the constraints and the approvals and the development of that package and moving it through a workflow that O3 brought to the table. From there, we moved on to the 3D graphical scoping component, which brings you into the status visualization and the ability to then use graphical scoping to create packages quicker. If you have an appropriately attributed model, it is much quicker to create the packages, about an order of magnitude or roughly 10 times faster to create them with a graphical interface than it is to create them manually. So there's a huge advantage there, but you can still, even if you're scoping them manually, get all of that, or non-graphically, you can get a lot of the value associated with managing those packages and the constraints and the approvals and the productivity around those. And then lastly, into the AWP program management. And that's really you're scaling it across the enterprise and scaling it further across your projects as well, and really adopting AWP as a true project management solution from the very early phases of the project all the way through the end. So this is the journey that we took as an organization, and it's the same journey that we recommend people take as they're learning AWP. Get started, get early value, and then grow that up over time as your maturity increases. In addition to that kind of lesson learned from our perspective of how organizations should move through this process, another kind of key things that you want to think about when going through your AWP journey is really you don't want to wait for the process to be perfect before applying technology. If you talk to a consultant where they make all their money off of the process component and all they want to do is say, hey, let's talk for 3 years and let's spend millions of dollars before we actually start doing, right? We don't think that's the right approach. And it's not because, hey, it benefits us for the software deployed, but because if you do that process, then really what you're doing is you're introducing double change management. So if you don't bring the technology in with the process, then I have to do a process change, and I also then have to do a technology change. So you're doubling your change management burden, which is not an effective strategy for efficient implementation, because we all know that change management is the greatest challenge when bringing in a new process or technology. And the other key piece to this is that you actually want to get that value where you are. So depending on where you are in that maturity journey, you want to get the value associated with that. And so what we typically recommend is that when you're early to this process, you start early in the project and you start with something simple like, let's digitalize your RFI process. Let's digitalize your constraint management process. Let's take some existing processes and just move them into the digital space. So you're not having to make a major process change. It's just a digital change. And you can execute those, and you can get comfortable with, I have now a digitalized foundation. And then you can increase and optimize the process on top of that. But if you start by establishing a digital foundation, then your process improvements on top of that are configurations and tweaks, which are pretty easy to bring in once you've got that digital foundation. And then lastly, you need to select a technology that can grow with you. So we think it's really important when we look at this space. And one of the challenges our space has had is that technology innovation has been historically very slow in this space compared to other markets. And I'm talking about in construction in general there. The amount of innovation in construction has been way lower than what we see in other markets. And people are sort of accustomed to, kind of 20-year cycles around technology. And I think that's now finally changing, and that's really good for our industry. So when you think about selecting technologies, make sure you select a technology that can grow with you, because things are rapidly changing now, and only that rate of change is only going to increase. So you really need to be working with some innovators in the space. And then some things to think about, the technology also helps you uncover some of your parts of your process that can be improved. So when you are bringing in a digital foundation across your existing processes, it makes you think a little bit about, hey, why do we do this approval process for our RFIs? We can mimic that exactly in the software, but hey, does that really make sense? Maybe it should be like this. So you actually, as you go through this process of digitizing some of your existing processes to build that foundation upon which you can improve your process and introduce more AWP maturity, you actually find some challenges or opportunities in your existing process, which is just a nice added benefit. So something to keep in mind as you go through that. The other thing that I think is really important to keep in mind about AWP is that it's no longer people at CII giving sort of subjective value numbers and saying things like, oh, 2 for 10, you spend 2% of your TIC and you get 10% savings, right? I'm guilty of this as well. Early on, people would throw these numbers around without any real kind of data behind them. And I'm happy to say that's no longer the case. The results are in, it's been proven. Right, we've got an example here with an owner who managed 15 small cap projects using O3 and AWP, and then on that same plant, 15 small cap projects, very similar in size and type, not using AWP and O3. And then they performed hundreds of thousands of time on tools observations across those projects. And it resulted in showing that there was a 20% productivity improvement on the O3 AWP projects over the non-O3 AWP projects. So a 20% increase in that productivity, and that translated to a 9% decrease in cost. So no longer do we have to say, hey, theoretical value here, the results are in, it's been proven, and this was not some small study with a few measurements. This was hundreds of thousands of measurements. It's statistically significant, and it was performed by the owner, not by O3 or someone who has a bias or a reason to see the AWP succeed. This was done by the owner as part of their process. So we're really excited to be able to say, hey, the results are in, everyone. This is proven. Let's not pretend like AWP isn't the future. So when we think about the AWP technology landscape, now that we've thought a little bit about how we got here and how AWP evolved over time, if you think about the way the AWP technology landscape is broken down, and at O3 we like to think about this across the major contractual phases of a project, so front-end planning, detailed design, construction, commissioning, startup. People have different names for the phases, but these are the 4 general phases of the project. If you think about the standard project tools that you're used to seeing, things like scheduling, document management, estimating, work in progress document management, design tools, procurement and materials management, completions. Right, this isn't an exhaustive list of tools by any means. There are lots of other tools, but these are an example of, typically O3 is integrated with all these tools on a project. There are others, of course, but just giving a sense of kind of the standard project tools. Then you start thinking about AWP. Well, I need constraint management. All right, well, what's AWP on the front end? What's AWP during detailed design? I know what work phase planning is, but what's AWP in commissioning and startup, and what does reporting look like across this? The reality is that the rest of the industry today with AWP technology is really inside this work phase planning bucket, or they're using Excel spreadsheets or kind of a mishmash of things, but it's really in the work phase planning bucket that the industry's been focused, and other technology providers have been focused, and that's not the way that we see it. For us, AWP tools go across this entire project lifecycle. So on the front end planning, it's on plan for setting up the AWP project for success. an AWP for engineering procurement. It's on design, which is around driving actual value in the vendor management process, the engineering work package development process, the design and execution process. Obviously, in on build, then you get into workplace planning, graphical and non-graphical. You get into things like scaffold work packages and all the status visualizations and reporting associated with that. And then into ADP for commissioning and startup, where you're dealing with test work packages, turnover packages, systems completions, tracking, punch list management. And then across that, you need O3s, or you need an AWP health adoption and outcomes reporting, right? You want to understand, is AWP actually being used for better planning and execution, or is this just being paid lip service because I wrote it in a contract and so somebody said, yeah, I've got 3 AWPs, definitely, let me check that box. Right, so you need to understand, is it truly being adopted? What's the health of that? How can I improve that? And then am I realizing the outcomes that I put in my business case to justify using the ADP and technology, right? That's a critical piece of this. And then underlying, of course, all of that is constraint management across the entire life cycle of the project. So from O3's perspective, AWP is not work-based planning. AWP is a true project management solution across the entire life cycle of the project, which then translates into how we view that from a module perspective. We've broken up our solution into these modules: on plan, on design, on build, on start, and an underlying on target, which is the agile project management solution that underlines it across the entire project. We've broken it up into these modules, but to be honest, this isn't separate modules in the application. We just went in and we bucketized some of the functionality so that we could make it easier to communicate to people the value of various feature sets at various stages of the project. It's still one solid branch of code. It's one data layer, one business layer, one user interface, one API that connects to all this. It's not broken up into distinct technical modules. This is really just a marketing communication distinction so people can understand the value that you get at various phases. This is another view of kind of that data and what the systems are and the features and value at various places. We're very proud of what we have. We display this on our website. You can get to this information. You can get to demonstrations and videos and everything about what we do. We're really proud of what we've done. We think we think it's important that people share and put out there what they have. We don't want to be seen as a vaporware company or people that present things that they don't actually have, and so that's why we're really transparent. Happy to share. We give demos on all this. We have nothing to hide. From another kind of view of way of thinking about this, and I think is critical to the way that O3 thinks about the industry, is that we don't say installation work package, engineering work package. When we think technically about this, we say XWP. And what that means is that it's any type of work package, because from a technical perspective, O3 is architected with these various engines, right? We have an approval engine, a constraint management engine, a task engine, a risk engine. We have these various engines that apply to all the package types, and allows us, when we take this approach, to quickly spin up additional work package types as those become mainstream or as those get invented working with our clients or through our work at CII. So we believe it's important that you think about this from an XWP perspective, because you want to future proof. There's more things coming. We are pushing the industry in engineering. We're pushing the engineering and pushing the industry in scaffolding. We're pushing the industry in front end planning. So you need to have a technology provider that thinks about this in terms of how can we continue to extend this as AWP grows and matures as a methodology. But given that, the way that we think about the kind of core components, work package creation and tracking, so that can be scoping via graphical or non-graphical, but you then managing those packages through a workflow. The work package scheduling and sequencing, this is really important. We're seeing P6 become less relevant on projects and be really only for the high-level milestone planning, and then you move into sequencing rather than scheduling. So now I'm building packages and I'm being able to sequence and move those around. Real-time status visualization, whether that's 3D, 4D, 5D, et cetera. Constraint and approval management, so adding and really giving true entity status to constraints and approvals and all the tasks inside the system, right? If you want to be a true workflow management tool, if you want to actually aid in execution, then you need to have constraint and approval management as a core component of that. The associated reporting and analytics. And it's important to note that we don't try to replace your Power BI reporting. In fact, our APIs are set up to make it easy for you to consume that data into a data lake and do all the reporting that you want to do. we believe that reporting and analytics are just another visualization inside the tool, like you have 3D and 4D status visualizations using the model. By using charts and graphs and being able to manage by exception and drive down and find things, it allows us to better drive users to action. At the end of the day, we're an execution tool that helps you execute the project better. Planning is important. Better planning allows for better execution. But if you stop at planning and don't aid execution, then you're not moving the needle. O3 goes not only to the better planning, but also the best execution. And that execution requires automation and workflows. You need to be able to configure those to match what the project or portfolio needs, and then you need to introduce automation wherever possible. Remove all dual entry of information by pulling in from integrations through lots of solutions, and then having automation within O3 to pull things together, create automatically constraints, automatically create predecessors and successors, automatically clear those. Right? The ability to automatically pull in drawings, automatically create work steps, automatically track and manage things is really critical, and that's only ever increasing, particularly as more and more AI comes through. So that's how we think about the general XWP bucket, and then that applies across all those primary entities within our solution. We extend those actually beyond just work packages to things like mechanical equipment and purchase orders and other items that we track within the solution as well. So when we think about how we approach this space and how we approach product strategy, there's a few things that I'd like to share that I think are important. Our vision around how to change the industry is really graphical scoping is not enough, right? Better planning is where things start. Better execution is what really matters, right? Who cares how good your planning is if your execution is junk, right? At the end of the day, the reason you invest in planning is because you want an outcome of better execution. So the first waves of solutions in this space were, hey, let's fix this planning problem, and then the execution stuff just wasn't there. And O3 recognized, hey, we need to solve both of those. Planning is part of it, but you got to drive and execute better. Also, historical project management tools really offer a top-down bean counter view of the world. It's all about costing and charging correctly. They weren't about supporting the actual execution, the doers, right? People who are using those solutions on projects today are begrudgingly entering information because their boss says they have to. They're not joyfully embracing the use of the tool because it makes their job easier. And that's the one thing that O3 really focuses on, which is supporting those doers and making their work easier so that we can get that better execution. And then, of course, it's important to have that top-down visibility, particularly when you're an enterprise-wide mission-critical solution. You have to have that roll-up so that you can have the VP of Capital Projects in there and understanding. There clearly has to be that top-down piece and understanding the planning is getting done. But if you don't have that execution component, then you're missing a huge piece of the value. From a product management strategy, a couple of things that we think about, right? The best software comes from companies that listen, right? There's some consulting groups out there that'll tell you, hey, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, right? That's not our approach. We have best practices, we share those, but what really sets us apart is that we're great listeners, and that is hugely valuable for us. I'd love to say that, hey, we built the best solution in this space because we got a bunch of really smart guys and we just know what we're doing. No, that's not true. We built the best solution in this space because we listen to our clients, we listen to the industry, and we rapidly incorporate that feedback into the solution with 26 production releases per year. Another key component to our strategy is that client success is a necessary evil, and if we could remove it entirely, we would. From a software design perspective, we're always looking at how do we make this easier to implement and faster? How do we make this easier to learn and train on? Because our enterprise clients are self-sufficient. They run this, they deploy, they set up new projects. We're not involved, right? We're not involved in that process at all, and that's core to our strategy. We want to be a software company. We want to set people up to be successful. We don't want to set people up so that, hey, you have to keep coming back to us and use our people or you can't have success. That's not our model. Our model is, hey, we're going to do everything we can to get you successful on your own. And we think that, in the long run, that's what clients prefer. Obviously, we support them all they need to get to that point. But from a design perspective, we're always looking to make that simpler. We want to drive users to action because execution and action is what moves the needle. Better planning is only there because you want better execution. If you could get better execution without planning, you'd say, why are we planning, right? You just do the better execution. Better planning is a means to better execution. Driving users to action is what's critical. Collaboration is a key component of this. AWP goes across all stakeholders. You need collaboration between the owner, the EPC, and all the contractors. You need collaboration across the disciplines. You need collaboration across everybody involved with that project. And so our pricing model reflects that. The older version of, hey, you buy a license, then you pay a maintenance fee, of kind of the 1990s style approach to software, is not that. That is the antithesis of collaboration. It drives the fewer people to use the software and the sharing of the usernames, and then that causes the software companies to increase the price to try to make up the difference, which then further drives people to have fewer licenses. That goes against everything ADP stands for, and that's why we believe, and our pricing model reflects, that you want everybody in there, and you want unlimited users on a project, and you want true project collaboration. Uh, and then, lastly, a core to our strategy is we listen and react quickly through agile Scrum development. We do not want to be a dinosaur, right? We don't want to be the ones who don't see the future coming and have their solutions end of life as a result of that, right? We want to listen and react and move quickly, and our 26 production releases per year, I think, reflect that. So a little bit about where O3 sees itself in the market, and based on feedback and from others and from our client base. A couple of key components. One, O3 is the market leader in data management. We were built from the ground up to consume data from all of these various systems. We have a modern API that uses our own user interface, uses our API, right? We have out of the box integrations with all the core systems. We've integrated with more tools. We have some projects that have 70 different integrations on them. So we're very comfortable with integrations. We've never found a data set we can't get in and out of the tool. We can do bidirectional RESTful APIs. We can do import, export, flat files, semi-automated, all the things that you expect. Inside the system, we have data mapping. So we have the O3 is system aware. It's configured to know what solutions are on being used in the project. There's data deliverables that define the fields format and frequency of the data exchange between those systems. And then we report on that of whether or not the high quality data is there, whether that data is timely. So there's all this data management and data reporting and data tracking, in addition to the ability to consume that data. And then we also have all kinds of default templates for consuming less structured data. So we recognize that not all data is perfect on jobs, and we need to help people get that into the system. In addition to our ability to consume data from any system and be able to get that in and translate it and all those things, we also have change management within the tool. So you can bring in data, you can see what changes will happen as a result of accepting that data. You can then accept, reject, or quarantine those changes. And you can even invite other people to review and approve those changes, so you can be a quarterback of that process. So we have the best in class for consuming the data, understanding what data needs to be consumed, and then we give you this change management to understand whether or not I want to bring that in. And then we take that a step further when we look at component change management. When you get down to the construction components, or that core kind of unit piece that we consider when we're talking about what we're tracking and building on a construction site. And so having a detailed historical tracking of all of those changes and being able to adjust and go back as needed is a critical component. And then another major piece is obviously the large model loading, parsing, and optimization. We lead the space in our ability to consume these very large models. We have we've moved the industry beyond the kind of old school end-to-end run. It takes us 3 days to be able to process a model, and you can only get an update once a week, kind of the kind of old school approach. And we've moved forward to what we call real-time dynamic multi-source model conditioning in the cloud. And so what does that mean? That means that we can have 70 different data sources from all these different file types, whether we're talking about IFC or PCF or IDF, or it doesn't matter, any kind of data type, right? That we can have all these different data sets, and with any one of those changing, then that real time is processed and those changes are incorporated. You don't have to say, okay, let's take everything. Now let's do this big long run outside of the tool, and then let's reload that information in. Now, that's something that needs to be handled in a modern cloud way, which is what our approach to that. And this is not your grandfather's approach to model conditioning. So if you're used to the old kind of archaic way of thinking about it, hey, we'd love to talk to you more about kind of the future of real-time dynamic model conditioning. O3 is also the market leader in early project planning. We really pioneered this space in AWP. We launched a plot plan visualization. So from very early on in the project, for helping you define your CWAs and CWPs, for visualizing your progress for your AWP master index, right, for doing your early path of construction simulations, uh, this is something very critical. We offer, we call it, well, some people would say 40, but really it's 2D plus time in this case, because you have a two-dimensional view of the plot plan, but then seeing how that moves over time and being able to develop and evaluate various path of construction options. In addition to the AWP related components, we also have significantly expanded our digital project management offerings. As an example of RFI management, all right, our clients now are ditching their email approach to RFIs, or their Excel approach to RFIs, or even their specialty tool approach to RFIs, because there's a huge value with having those RFIs tightly coupled with all of these other components, right? If you're managing your projects in O3, right, it's nice to have those RFIs that have the context of, I can associate this RFI with this package, or with this CWA, or with this piece of mechanical equipment, or with this purchase order, right? Allows me to connect those and have that clear connection to those. Another piece that is pretty exciting is the project framing and assurance planning. So the ability to have templates around all of the deliverables and tasks and execution and pieces that need to be done at various stages of the project, from the very front end framing process to all the stage gates. Our clients are able to manage all of those actions and those activities and deliverables within the tool. Historically, people tend to do that in Excel and then just put it away. Now you've got a true system for managing that, starting from the very early parts of the project. Lots more that I could talk about here, but I need to keep moving. O3 is the market leader in AWP for engineering, so really pioneered this space as well. And now we're working with CII to bring the industry, or bring the CII documentation up to pace with where the industry is. But when we think about this, it's the ability to have packages for managing the interactions with vendors, moving away from this first in, first out management of vendor deliverables or vendor requests, and moving to optimizing the way that you manage vendor documentation to support your path of construction, right? So now I can be intelligent about, I can understand this vendor data, how much of my construction downstream does this impact, and how should I prioritize that? So you move into a smarter approach to managing your vendor work packages, vendor data, and the commenting and the annotation and evaluation and review process of those vendor deliverables. Design work packages, which are the level 4 entity below an engineering work package for the design work. So if you're familiar with construction work packages, you have nested underneath their installation work packages that help you to manage the level 4 activities for the construction. Similarly, this is design work packages for managing those activities, level 4 activity for the engineering or design work underneath an engineering work package. So this gets you away from the old world of, hey, all my engineering work packages are 99% complete for 10 months and I have no real visibility into the process. By taking it down a level into design work packages and tracking those to done, you get those same advantages that you get with tracking IWPs at that level, as opposed to only reporting progress at the CWP level. And then in addition to the reporting components, also status visualizations around all of these package types. So the 10 work package types that we support out of the box, all of those have visualizations within the tool. In addition, we have other purpose-built visualizations for particular meetings or particular activities that you do throughout the process. But status visualization around all of those engineering-related package types are also critical to the process in a 3D and 4D format. Another area that we're truly excited about is in AI. We're a market leader in this space. We think there are people out there who are advertising a big red easy button that if you push this, it builds your project for you. That's not our strategy. We think we'll get there from a market, and we are building towards that. But what we're focused on is adding true value to people today, right? Rather than saying, hey, we've got the big red easy button that builds your project for you. Here's some real use cases where people are actually getting value. They're truly using AI today through O3. We do that with drawing tag identification, so consuming drawings. We can pull in all those drawings, and then we can pull all the information across those, and we can update information that's missing from our engineering data. Right, so using OCR and AI tools built into the solution, we can consume that data and then add that to our information or data within the tool. AI-powered digital paper. So we love it when our clients use tablets and take O3 out into the field and do things digitally, but we realize that not everybody's there. And so one awesome solution that we have in place that people are loving is being able to print out their IWP, go to the field, mark that up, create a new constraint, track progress, add notes, and then just take a picture of that. And then that picture then goes through that OCR and AI process to then update that progress. And you can add an approval step in there if you'd like, or that can be automated. But it allows you to go from a paper process in the field to very quickly having that captured without having to do manual data entry. And then AI data review. So going through and catching common errors, understanding sequencing issues, hierarchy issues, predecessor issues, or issues around naming conventions. If you have, sometimes we're separating with a space or a bar or a dash, right? Or different names for suppliers are spelled differently, or fat fingerings, right? Those types of things. AI is really good at capturing and categorizing and solving those. And so those are some of the examples of where people are using AI today with O3 to actually add value to what they're doing. We got a lot of stuff coming in this space. I'm not going to talk about some of that here because it's future, but really exciting stuff. And this is an area that I'm really pumped about moving forward. Another area that's critical to our strategy, we're the market leaders in security. So from the very beginning, we took the time to think about how to architect our solution as a mission critical enterprise global solution, right? In order for the types of organizations who have rolled us out globally, don't take that lightly, right? So you have to set this up and be a real modern architecture in terms of your security. We've got all the things in place that you would expect around redundancy, encryption at rest, right, and isolations and load balancing, backups, point in time restore, all the things that you would expect from a modern solution. In addition to that, we are SOC 2 Type 1 and Type 2 certified, been that for years, and we have also we've been through multiple audits there and a year-long audit process. All right, so that is something that we're really proud of. A lot of effort goes into developing and having an organization that can support that. But even more proud of than we are of our SOC 2, we received the highest level of certification around penetration testing. So we came back with 0 vulnerabilities. That is not something that most software companies can say. It's a very, very small number of companies that achieve this. The exact percentages aren't shared because this is security, but we know that this is a very small amount of people who achieve this. Very pleased with the team and what they've done to achieve this level of security. Another area that's critical to us is the graphical work packaging. We're the market leader in this space, whether that's talking about construction digital twins and the ability to consume, the engineering model and add in, say, the PCF data, in this case here, showing the PCF geometry. Now you see going from those ISOs down into individual spools and welds. Now I can click on those, right? We actually add those geometries into the space. We do similar things in other disciplines, but we actually create those new geometries and make those clickable entities within the solution. And then as you enter in more and more information, that becomes your true digital twin, which then you can continue on and leverage later in the project. In addition to that, we offer best-in-class planner support. So as you're building packages, there are tips and tricks, and there are checkpoints, there are questions. Hey, we recognize this components from multiple disciplines. Are you sure that's correct? Or, hey, you're above these hours. Do you think that's correct? And well beyond that in terms of complexity. But the idea is that as AWP expands and the number of workface planners cannot keep up with the demand for workface planners, as technology providers, we need to make this easy enough for people to quickly pick up and be able to plan projects, and that's where our best-in-class planner support comes. And there's some AI components to this as well, and that's another area that we think is really exciting moving forward. Loading of multiple models. In order to do true graphical planning, the ability to consume lots of models, load multiple models, have model groups. So we've got some really clever things that we have in place around taking different models and stitching those together and showing you multiple models at once, having model groups, as well as being able to optimize and handle large models. We think this is really critical, particularly as model sizes continue to increase as we add more and more data to these models. And then we have a couple of different sequencing tools that are really critical, both non-graphical and graphical. So sequencing, again, that's saying, hey, I'm going to do my level 1, level 2 inside of P6, But then when I get down here into maybe I'm using my level 3 and level 4, I'm defining those inside of O3, and then I'm sequencing and moving those around within O3 and accepting those changes or rejecting them. And we're moving away from this concept of scheduling to sequencing, right? Because scheduling is very rigid, sequencing is more dynamic and agile and allows you to adjust to that, right? Anyone knows that on any meaningfully sized project, if you're using P6, it's just your as-built. It's what you did. It's not planning, right? It's you're only just constantly trying to catch up with what you did. This is around really actually planning and sequencing ahead of time. We do that both graphically and non-graphically. So same concept, we have a graphical version of that, so you can look at that graphically. You can see that in a 3D, 4D format, and understand that sequencing process and adjust and see. So you can visually see how that plan of execution will impact. Will you have stacked trades, or will you have congestion in a particular area? So it gives you that visual view, so you can understand the geospatial context of the plan that you're sequencing. So throwing a lot at you guys really quickly. We're really excited about what we've done. This is a very small tip of the iceberg of the functionality that's available, but just wanted to highlight in some areas that we think are really critical and where O3 has really pioneered the space or innovated the space. So in conclusion, right, O3 is the market leader in AWP. We've got more projects worldwide than anyone. We've got more users worldwide than anyone. We are a modern solution, yet we're robust and battle tested and have been around long enough to really understand the corner cases and the challenges and all the little things that come from experience in the field. And we have the processes in place to capture that feedback and quickly and directly build that into the solution, which is critical for us as well. So some of the key takeaways: we've expanded rapidly over the past 7 years, and we continue to strive to lead innovation in our space. I will be very frustrated if we ever lose that mantle of the top leader in innovation in this space. I'll be very frustrated if that ever happens. We're a modern agile project management tool that supports the entire project lifecycle. AWP is a project-wide execution methodology. It involves everyone. It needs to be collaborative, and it needs to go across if you want to really see the value or maximize that value. Planning is not enough. You must also do and measure, right? Plan, do, check, act, right? There's a lot of ways to think about this, but planning is there only so that you can have better execution. If you don't actually execute, then the planning was useless. So planning is the first piece. The old school kind of dinosaur scoping technologies from the early 2000s, those are really just scoping tools. Right now, O3 shifted the way we think about this and brought in the execution component, and that's still core to our strategy. ADP as a methodology is expanding. So your technology provider should be in a place where they can continue to innovate and keep up with that. 5 years from now, if we're talking about the same things in this space, I'll be really frustrated. O3 has moved the conversation forward over the last 8 years, and I expect to continue to do that. I want to continue pushing the bounds in scaffolding and front-end planning and engineering and commissioning and startup, all of the pieces where we have opportunities for improvement. This is a project execution methodology. It's all stakeholders, all disciplines. Your technology should do that. Your pricing model should support that. This is a collaborative environment. That's the future of contracting, in my opinion, is going to become more collaborative, not less. And so software solutions that support collaboration are the future. And lastly, O3 is committed to driving earlier project management of AWP and market leading change management. We think the number one thing holding the industry back is that people are not digitalizing their processes early enough. And then when it comes time to introduce technology and change, you're in the middle of it. And there's now this huge change management hurdle. If you get a digital floor or foundation in place, you can then tweak and optimize the process over time or across projects. If you're thinking about a portfolio of projects, my first project, I'm at this level, second project, that level, third project, fourth project, you can introduce that over time, but that requires this digital foundation. So getting that in earlier is critical to your ability to then absorb additional process change over time. We've seen vastly better results in the adoption of technology and AWP when clients start early and build that digital foundation from the beginning. All right, I think that's all that I have for today. So I'm going to turn it over to Tori to see what questions we have from the audience. Thank you all for your time.
All right. Great info. Thank you for that, Josh. So, first question: what do you think is the next big thing for industrial construction technology?
Yeah, well, I think What I'm most excited about right now is AI. I think like all new technologies that have great promise, it's going to go through the Gartner hype cycle, which, historically people have said we overestimate the impact of a technology in the 2-year time frame and underestimate the technology impact in a 10-year time frame. And I'd say that I think that applies here. Like I said before, there are some people saying, "Hey, big red easy button and it builds your project." We're not there yet. I think hyping that and saying that is not beneficial to the industry because it only leads to disappointment. But I think we will be there, or close to that in the future. And we're focused on the foundational components that allow us to achieve that. So I do think AI is going to be huge. I think it's disruptive across the board, and I think that includes our industry.
All right. Next question. Does O3 do more than just advanced work packaging?
Yeah, absolutely. We core to our strategy is the support of agile execution, right? So because what we have found is that organizations want to have agile implementation of their technology, of their everything that they're doing, running their meetings in an agile format, right? The modern companies are getting away from, let me have an Excel action tracker that we look at, during the meeting and then disappears, and we have no visibility into that. We're not having a process or cadence to really managing that. I think people are realizing that approach doesn't work. And so we think agile is a core component of the solution. We see a lot of engineers who use agile Scrum methodology to manage their tasks. So some more of the office worker component of the construction project ecosystem uses the agile piece, but having it tightly coupled and tied into AWP is core to our strategy. We do have some clients who don't do any AWP or work-based planning and are just doing agile management of their projects, so digital agile project management. But core to our strategy and core to our fiber and core to our focus in beginning is advanced work packaging. We hitched our wagon to AWP early, and we think that was a good decision, and we think it continues to be the way that companies who want to do better are going.
All right. Well, we are coming up on time here. So, with that, we're going to wrap up, and I will leave you with some information that you can learn more by visiting www.o3.solutions. Note that there is no .com in that. And there you will find a plethora of information, including case studies that you can download for free, past webinars with a variety of topics covering advanced work packaging, our solutions, and the industry itself. And then, kind of in the same vein, we've got a bunch of marketing videos that you can explore there. You can always connect with us on social media and sign up for our monthly newsletter. That way, you never miss an update or another event that we're doing. And if that's not enough, you can email us at info@o3.solutions. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you at our next event. And thank you to Josh for presenting. And thank you to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Tori.